Welcome to Minerva, a monthly show where we discuss the mysteries. We hope to give you enough information that you will go away and do your own study. I'd like to introduce my co-host Duncan.
Hello.
And today we're going to be discussing the mystery of Rennes le Chateau. Now, this is the third episode, so if you haven't watched the other two, please go back and view those first, because we're really just going to get straight into this.
Oh, yes.
So, last time around we discussed the bloodline,
Yep.
and the bloodline from Jesus, but the bloodline of the Merovingians, etc., etc. And we discussed that first parchment, which Sonia finds in a pillar, and we discussed the decipherment of that and how Henry Lincoln first wrote his book. But there's another parchment, a second parchment, which has an even more tantalising clue.
Yeah. The second one I find, as you say, far more tantalising, far more engaging. It's completely different in style to the first. Yeah. It's set out in a square motif with two symbols, top and bottom, and a peculiar collection of letters on the side, bottom right. Actually, no punctuation. It's like continuous letters to actually read it through. But the main part is it does hold an encrypted message, but to decipher it, the actual process you have to do to exchange letter for letter is so unique. It is so abstract of using three different systems of encoding. Unless you knew that system, you would never find it.
Yeah.
I can't believe anyone would actually find that by process or by accident. It's like a million, billion to one. But it does leave a very enigmatic statement, which I think is of value, but it could just be nonsense, just to entice you deeper into the mystery. Yeah. Now, I hope I get this right. I think it's shepherdess, no temptation, Prossin and Teniers hold the key, peace, or PAX 681, by this cross and this horse of God I complete or destroy this daemon at midday, blue apples. I mean, it's so... oh, thank you. The trouble is, you read it so many times. I remember the first time being quite engaged with it, but I have my own theory of what it means, but it is so, I think, enticing to look at. Yeah. But of course, we have those first few bits, which I think are the most famous. The shepherdess, no temptation, Prossin and Teniers hold the key.
Yes, and that leads you to Poussin, who's Nicolas Poussin was a famous French painter, and painted a very well-known picture called The Shepherds of Arcadia.
Yeah.
Now, so that leads you straight away to that. It's the first thing that comes to your mind, and that's what is shown over and over again with this mystery. Book covers, you'll see it, and everywhere else you see it, because it seems to be one of the real driving forces behind this. And even if we go back to what the Prior of Sion told Henry Lincoln, it was that this painting is incredibly important.
Yeah. So
you need to go and research and look at this. So Henry Lincoln looks at this picture, and he's obviously in the area researching it, and he finds that actually within the landscape, in and around the area of Rennes le Chateau, in a place called Arc, or just on the road to Arc, is a mount with a tomb on it.
Yeah.
And if you stand in the right position at the right time, you can see that the mountains in the background match the mountains in the picture, in the original Poussin picture. So does that mean that Poussin painted this? Is it the same scene?
I mean, one thing, I would have, up until a few months, completely dismissed it. Yeah. Until we did actually visit. Yeah. And you stand on that bit. Because when you see a photograph of the landscape, it's quite flat. And I know the painting's flat. But when you're standing somewhere, you get more of an arc view. And you start to slow. I'm such a skeptic, but there's this thing. Because in the paintings, there's a 2 minute, which is there. And this space, when you look at the original photographs where this tomb actually was, and you look at it, it is tantalisingly curious.
It is. I mean, the one thing that we must mention is that originally when Henry was doing his research, there was a tomb there. Yeah, and it did look similar. I don't think it had the inscription on it, but it looked similar. What happened was people were going, and this place is not in the middle. Well, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's on the side of a road. Yeah. But what I didn't appreciate before I'd been there was that you couldn't just walk over to it. Yeah. It's almost on a bridge. So to actually get to it's quite difficult, and it's on a farmer's land.
Well, it is, because the road goes across, and it's not just on a bridge bit. It's got like its own little moat.
It has,
doesn't it? And there's a building that seems quite modern that side, and then there's the farmhouse. It's just right there. Yeah. And it's like, get out of here quick, have a look, and go.
I mean, there is apparently the farmer that owns it is not happy with people.
Well, to be honest, you can understand it from actually being there.
Yeah.
But back to the question of, did Posson actually do it? Now, there's Anthony Blunt, was a professor who focused on the life of Poussin, and there is a missing period where he did travel, because he spent most of his time in Rome, where I can't remember which pope it was, but one pope after he died, because even on Poussin's memorial tomb in Rome has the Shepherds of Arcadia on his tomb. And I think the pope says something, it's lamenting to art that this guy has passed away. And so there is a time when Count Richelieu ordered him back, requested, get back here, so that he went back to Paris. And there is Jonas, and there is a gap, and there is something I would happily have dismissed, but after seeing the place, I hate to say it, it's quite tantalising.
Yeah, I think, certainly having been there, I definitely think that's what it is. I'm a strong believer in it. But the problem is now it's almost much harder to imagine it, because with all these people going on the land, the farmer got completely annoyed with this and blew the thing up. Just threw a load of dynamite in it and actually blew the whole thing to smithereens. He didn't want people going on there and viewing this, and he felt the whole thing was a nonsense. Which brings us on to something else, in the sense of, we're looking in the landscape. We're told to look in the landscape through these things. And Henry Lincoln, who we've spoken about before, who wrote the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, he takes that painting. Mm-hmm. And starts drawing over it.
No, there's. Well, before we go on to that bit, because I just want to rip that to shreds. But there's we're going on to the validity of the Prior of Zion. I hold very little credence in that. But this concept of this document where it says Poussin, and this idea that nobody before in art history would even think that Poussin was there to paint this painting. And that location, and yet we now have this plausible concept that one is missing during the time the painting came up, and two, we have this location. But let's get onto the geometry of the painting. The Louvre itself holds records of the scale of the painting, and what was common at that time is, like any piece of art was, you didn't have photographs. Your frame matched your painting. But if you want to put the painting in a different place and it didn't quite look right, it was quite understandable. You would chop the painting down and fit to where the area you wanted. You would even pay people to increase it and have someone increase the edges. Now, Lincoln's geometry relies solely on the scale of the painting canvas itself, which would be ridiculous, because Poussin himself would know, this is going to be adjusted to size. So if he had anything of meaning to put in it, he wouldn't put it in the only variable aspect of his art. It's ridiculous.
No, and the other thing I don't like about it is it doesn't stay within the frame of the painting.
Yes.
What we're getting onto is, this is a pentagram, but the pentagram falls outside as well, which just doesn't, to me, if you were an artist and you were going to purposefully put something there, you would make it sit flush in the middle, and it would everything would match up perfectly. And for me personally, I can't go along that route.
That's very true. I mean, because the other thing, because I was fascinated by this, and so I did look down the art history. So if this was a way of producing art with geometry in it, then we'd look at it. I have not yet found a piece of art of that period or before where the geometry goes outside of the painting.
No.
It's always within the painting itself. And so, no credence to it whatsoever.
No, the other thing is, this then leads on to Henry Lincoln using that same pentagram and then showing it on top of a map.
Yeah.
And that's the map of Rennes le Chateau. And in fairness, there's a reasonable fit for this. I have heard lots of different stories, and people are known to have said, well, I've seen Henry drawing this, and actually, he used sticker pens on certain bits just so that, his line will meet where it needs to. Yeah. But actually, if you're looking at this in ancient times and they're trying to do something physically out there in the landscape, to even be within half a mile of each other would be incredible. So, it is reasonably accurate, and there are different mountain tops around, and Rennes le Chateau being one of them, with each with its own individual kind of history. Some have old like Templar commanderies and preceptories on them. Others are ancient kind of castles and things like that. So could there be in the landscape this physical pentagram?
I would have to say no, because for one point, it's a case of with the modern phrasing of sacred geometry is so flippantly bantered about. If you could draw any pentagram, even if it's stylized, people say that's sacred geometry. That is not sacred geometry. Sacred geometry is when you draw something and you're meant to be emulating God's creation, and it's meant to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it is not sacred, because you're not having that sacred element in. And so, yes, it would be, you can allow the agents, well, you are slightly out, but slightly out in the rule book of the thing would be off. It just isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to Henry Lincoln, he really has gone that route now. He's come away from his earlier writings and said that a lot of that is kind of has either been disproved or he's moved on from those theories, and now he solely believes in what is demonstrable and provable, and he does believe that these things exist. So that is certainly one thing that our viewers can go away and research, because there's a lot of information on that type of stuff.
There is, but again, it's I think one of those prime examples where you have to go back to the original question. If there is this geometric thing in the back garden of Rennes le Chateau, how did the priest make money out of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
And what purpose does it serve?
Yes, it's why would someone go? There's a pentagram out there. Oh, great! I'll give you some money for that. It makes no sense to the original statement.
No, I mean, going back to the Poussin painting that we were talking about, the Shepherds of Arcadia. One thing we haven't discussed is that we've discussed that through its history of art.
Yeah.
But actually, it seems to be replicated over and over again in different types of things. There was a couple of different paintings by Poussin, but there is also reliefs of this all over the place, and one of the main and certainly most well known about ones is in Shugborough Hall, which is a monument in its own right within the gardens, amongst different, or one of many follies within the gardens in Shugborough, which is in England, and that is a reverse of this painting. Essentially with,
and it's
very 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 similar bits on it.
Again, it's stylized, isn't it?
It is stylized.
The main painting is landscape, but the relief is portrait. And if you look at the tomb, because he did do two versions where he used the same phrase, "Et into Arcadia," you go on two different paintings. But the tomb and the one at Shugborough replicates more of the original tomb.
It does,
and it's all complicated. And I did hear, I've always wanted to find out that there was. I read somewhere that where the relief was, there used to be a water feature in front of it.
Oh, okay.
It would be lovely if it was right, because it might have been the case of it was the reflection. You weren't meant to be looking at that. You're meant to be looking at the reflection.
Oh, I like that.
And of course, as we know, there's besides that the other tantalising part that comes from this. This particular one at Shugborough is it does have its own little mystery, doesn't it? Because it's got a series of letters underneath which have been left up for interpretation. I mean, there's been several theories, but out of all of the different follies it has there, that's the only one that has a blatant. What is this?
Yeah, I think they call it the DM code. And
that's it, yes.
It's essentially a code with different dots and things amongst it. And again, there has been some really good and interesting theories put forward, but still not 100%, everybody agrees on this. So the other thing that I find interesting about Shugborough, and there are some people out there, Andrew Baker, for example, who do some great work on that, just that small part of the mystery, But there is... If you go and you walk around the stately home, as many people do, just to see it, not for this mystery, just because it's an incredible place, there is a Teniers painting.
Yeah.
And of course, Teniers is also brought up into this second parchment we're talking about. And I went along when I was interested in this. I went with one of my partners and I went to the front desk as they're sort of welcoming you in. They give you a badge and everything. And I said, "I'm here to see the Teniers painting. Can I sit?" No idea. Hang on, I'll go and get the book. And they went and got the book, and they're going through. No, we haven't got any Teniers paintings. Sorry. And I thought, I'm sure somebody told me this is here, and I'm sure I'd seen it in a documentary or something, or at least read it in a book. So we walked around, and I was quite despondent by this point because I was hoping to see this thing, and that was really one of the reasons I'd gone there. And just on the way out, on a staircase, it was there.
Yeah,
but it's not the real one.
Nah,
Lady Anson. And again, we're not going to go into too much detail on this, but Lady Anson had repainted it and put it there, and it's slightly different.
Yeah, there's the belief is that there's Teniers the Younger, who's the one we assume we're talking about, because out of one of the things he liked to paint apparently was St Anthony, which is normally depicted as being tented. There's only a couple where he's not tempted. Well, in fact, to my knowledge, I think there's only one. And it's similar to the Anson one in the sense of the proportions, but it's, when you look at Lady Anson's work in general, her copies are really good. I mean, there's a couple where you look between the two and it's very good. Yeah. But on this one, it's noticeably out. It's not even just subtly. It's you can see it's stylized in that way, but it's different. Yeah. So it's then raises the question: is it intentional? Yeah,
and we're going down a side path here because we're very good at doing this because this mystery is so wide and there is so much information. But let's bring this back to this treasure mystery again. Yeah. Let's go back to the basics and say, did Saunier find these parchments, or did he find a treasure?
Yeah, that is the major concept, because we only know by the parchments from the books we've mentioned in the previous episodes. Yeah. But there are, I think you told me that the main ones or reminded me of them, where Saunier, we know he did this building. We know he had access to money. And there is one of the legends that there was it wasn't so much an altar being moved, he was moving a stone. And under the stone was some Visigoth or ancient coins and cups. Yeah. And am I right saying, you're saying about, was it?
Well, in the local area, there are obviously people that have been living there for years, and within their families have actually had things passed down to them from their parents who were there at Saunier's time. And if you know these people, and I don't claim to, but I know people that do know them. So it is, one of these kind of stories again. But we've seen photographic evidence. There are people that have chalices and cups and things that were given to them that are Visigothic. Wow. And it just seems such a coincidence that they've been passed down. We know there can be a connection there with Saunier. They're in the village, but there's not. As far as I'm aware, nothing's been fully tested, or nothing's really come out that puts it 100% there. But there are people like Bill Kersey and other people that have really gone down that Visigothic route of he found a treasure, or he found access to a treasure. Yeah. So there was a local cave that these parchments or something pointed to and said, if you go here, you will find it. And then that leads us to another clue, which is the gravestone. Yeah. There's the legend of one of the stories where Saunier was going out in the middle of the night, breaking up gravestones in his cemetery. Yeah. And one of them has curious messages in the sense of how it's broken up, and goes to, because it's the 17th of October is another thing that seems to be coming through so often. But the other one is a very stylized representation of, again, et into Arcadia ego. Yeah, so there's a mix between Latin and Greek and French, and it's incredibly enigmatic. But the problem is, we hear this story. Again, there's no proof. So a book comes forward. Yeah. And it's supposed to be a representation of gravestones in the Languedoc region by someone who was quite famous for doing this. Yeah. The problem is, it's not. I don't think it's a real book.
Yeah, it's a case of, I believe that it's cited in the very first book we even mentioned, where the first story comes through in French. It cites this book as being the source of these two other images, because we've got the images of the parchments, then we've got images of these two stones, which seems to validate this book. But then you take this extra step and say, okay, let's have a look at this book, and it seems totally independent. Yeah. But then the continuity of when the person was there, what the stuff he was doing, no other reference of what's actually going on,
or records of the book. Yeah. Nobody else has the book. It's not attributed to him. Yeah, I just think that is another one of those pathways you can go down, which it can lead you to either belief, but there's no real evidence. So moving on to some other theories which may be attributed to Rennes le Chateau. The selling of masses is something that comes up hugely. Now, one of the ways that Saunier is said to have gained his wealth was selling masses via the newspaper, or a kind of transaction with other people who live far away, but they would pay him to say a mass for their loved ones or for people that had passed away.
I mean, that's. I think it's one of the important parts of the story, because one, from what I understand, it kind of validates that there was, even at his time, a mystery over the money he was getting, because he was ordered to, because he had his original bishop, who then moved away, and then the next bishop came along and actually called him in and said, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And if I remember rightly, he refused to say. And so first off, and so he got replaced, and he had to move up into a village, and the villagers didn't go to the new priest; they went to follow him.
No, so where he built his Villa Britannia.
Yeah.
There's a small side chapel in there which we went into.
That's it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Beautifully stained glass building, and in that he would have mass.
Yeah.
And of course, that was full, but the church was empty.
Because it's not exactly a big church, is it? So
No.
it's not possible.
No.
But the good thing about that aspect is a case of, one, we can say that there is a mystery, even at his time, of how he got his money. But yes, I think it's like the second time he got called in, he did. I did, which was a way that you could actually earn a little extra money doing it. But could you really earn the amount of money he required through selling masses in a newspaper to, the masses?
I think, and looking back at the records, and we've got records of what he used to order, so the wine and the cheese and the food and all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it would have even covered the wine.
I don't think so.
Because he was ordering fantastic wines, absolutely amazing stuff, and he was having lavish parties.
Yeah.
And I just don't, personally, it doesn't sit with me that this was something he was earning.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit with me that this is something that he was, it almost feels like the wealth was set up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us on to another question that it's sort of being set up, which is, was it a sponsorship?
Yes, again, another one, because it's another documented part that goes on. He was pro-royalist, I believe, wasn't it? And there's accounts of his sermons where he is quite anti-government, which, of course, I believe the church was not allowed to hold any political stance whatsoever. But, of course, he's in quite a royal area. I mean, even, I believe, the villagers kind of liked their, he's our count, he's our duke, these are bits of, very proud of that. I mean, they're surrounded by castles. Didn't realise how surrounded they were until I got there.
Yeah.
But there's that strong, and it's quite plausible, because he is expressing these pro-royalist views. He is keeping the people within this structure of belief. It's not impossible that the richer families around go, we'll pay that for you, which could also explain, because the money was intermittent.
Yeah.
There were certain times where he had to stop projects because there wasn't money coming in.
Yep.
So maybe his cash flow was limited because, say another good sermon for us, we're missing cash.
Yeah, I think there's this theory that's been going around ever since the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, so right from the start, that he had a relationship with Emma Calvin.
Oh, yes.
Who was the Beyonce, let's say, of the time. Very, very famous singer, actress, etc., etc., etc. And here you've got this priest, for one, but also, someone just from a very small village, very tiny place, rubbing shoulders with people like that.
Yeah.
How did that merge, and how does that seem to happen when it's just a pure treasure story?
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, it goes back to how much validity is there of him going back to Paris in that early stage. Because it's not, although the relationship is meant to be with her, there's still things like Victor Hugo and the other celebrities and the forward thinkers of that period, which is enigmatic for the more spiritual side of it. Yeah. But as we always do, which is, I think, it's the great backstory, is just turning around and saying, how did you make money from it?
Yeah, I think that is the best place to really look. And for people that are going to go out there and research, you can look at the Hopewell family, you can look at the Habsburgs, you can look at all of these other families that are around this mystery that could have fed some of the money in. Yeah. But really, I think with all of these things, if you follow the money, you do tend to get to the truth somehow. And I think that is, if we ever find out anything about this, I think that is where we will find it.
Well, yeah, there is, but because there's also the murder and robbery part, isn't there, of the priest just down the road?
Yeah.
And again, reading the book, I was sceptical because thinking it was so far away. Because you hear the rhetoric and think, they say it's close, but it's not that close. But when you go there, and you're standing there and you can see, although of course it's because of the elevation, you could see the village where his a priest, his friend at that time.
Gilles, I think.
Yes, it isn't it? Yeah. He gets murdered in such a bizarre fashion. His house is ransacked. Money's left there. It's...
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, I was speaking to some friends that are into this mystery yesterday, and apparently he was due to move.
Really?
The day after.
Ooh.
He was going to move away and live out his retirement. So that's something else, but again, not being particularly corroborated. So there's so much to this mystery, and there's probably hundreds of things we've left out.
Yeah.
Because, there just is so much to it. And there are lots of other theories there. We haven't even touched upon the New Age stuff, the UFOs.
This is possibly a good idea.
The aliens, there are so many people come to this. And one of the other real kind of interesting parts of this story, and certainly took a big part of our trip, was when we went to sit in the Devil's Chair.
Yes, yes.
There are so many other smaller elements to this mystery which you can do, but all I can recommend is for people out there is to go away, do your own research, and start from the beginning. Read the Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Look at the Chronicle documentaries, and then work your way up through those, because I genuinely feel that this mystery is teetering on its comeuppance again.
Yes.
I think it's gone through the Da Vinci Code era, and now there could be another find just about to happen.
Yeah, I think the awkward thing, for people getting into it now, there's too much. I mean, for us, for me, about a decade before you, but we saw the progression. We only had the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and so every discovery was good for us. I think the tricky thing is now there is so much that you could lose yourself in. I think you nailed it with the sense of follow the money.
Yeah.
Don't forget the money.
No. So thanks so much for watching. Please do go away and do your own research. Like, subscribe, but fill in those comments. We really want to hear what you think and what we've left out and anything we've got wrong or right within this. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. So we will see you again very soon.